Hello, I'm Katie and this is Stepmum Space, the judgment-free zone where we talk candidly about the fairy tales and scary tales of stepmum life. So whether you've been a stepmum for years, you're just starting out, or you want to understand the stepmum in your life a bit better, this is the place for you. Today I'm talking with Jess, who's been a stepmum since she was just 19. Jess acknowledges how fortunate she is to have a really good relationship with her stepdaughter and her stepdaughter's mum, but she also speaks really openly about the reality of step-parenting whilst also raising her own small biological children, the mental load, the guilt, and the many, many moments where you need to pause and take a breath. We also talk about parenting differences, being the strict one, and the challenge of your partner treating the children he isn't with full-time differently from the ones he is. I really hope you enjoy the chat. Today, I'm so happy to be joined by Jess. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. You were just saying that you are on a rare, quiet morning.
I am, yeah. It's been quite nice. My daughter's starting at the childminders, my son's at school. So before I go back to work, I've got a morning off of no children.
Bliss.
It really is.
You mentioned today you've got two small children and then you're a stepmom as well. So tell us a bit about that.
My bonus daughter, she is 11 and I've been in her life for 10 years now, actually. I think near enough to the day. Me and my husband got together 10 years ago, January 2016. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's quite funny. We were talking to my husband's ex, my stepdaughter's mum, the other day, and we said if we looked back, the new trend that's going around when you look back at 2016 on social media, and we were saying if we did that, we would never have anticipated we'd be where we are now as this co-parenting family. It's been a wild ride, but it's definitely come out on top.
So take me back, because I've seen that trend doing the rounds as well.
Yes.
And 2016, I think I started to look back at some photos and then I was like, oh, I look so young and slim and healthy. And then I just kind of got absorbed into life back then. I had my second son in 2016. So in some ways, it was one of the best years of my life. Our first hours baby, which was lovely. But as with all families, it wasn't the perfect year. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole actually with the photos and then never posted any of them.
Oh, no. It's one of those, isn't it, where you always think there's going to be some really good times and then you look and think, oh, hang on, I can't. That's also some tricky times, which again is exactly like my 2016.
Yeah.
Because it was lovely meeting my husband at that time, but obviously it was a very different, it wasn't just you meet somebody and you are in that new relationship, because that new person has got somebody else with them as well. And it's really difficult. It's one of those where you don't kind of want to jump all in, but you also don't want to show that you're not interested. So I remember being in them mixed emotions at that time, going, oh, I really want this to work, but at the same time, I don't want to be like, put all my eggs in one basket because I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be.
And he had a 1-year-old, right?
Yeah, she was 1.5 at the time. I didn't meet her until quite a bit after. I think it was a good few months, really, that we were together and everything like that. I knew she existed. I knew she was there. It wasn't hidden from me or anything. And it's funny, I'd actually met her as well, but not through that partnership. It's going to sound really funny now. His mum was my boss. So he used to come in, and I worked at a rental place, and he used to come in and pay his rent. So he used to bring his daughter in and he used to just say hello to him, and it blossomed from there. So I'd actually met her just in hello. She was always looked through my drawers and everything, but it wasn't I'm dating this person, anything like that.
And I guess at 1.5, she probably wouldn't have grasped that concept anyway.
No, definitely not. They'd been split up probably October, so a good few months that they weren't together, and that whole situation was completely separate. So she was probably coming to terms as a 1.5-year-old with, this is mummy's house, this is daddy's house, this is my situation at the minute. And it's really difficult because you don't know what's going through their head at 1.5. You don't know how they're feeling in that situation.
Yeah. And you were really young as well, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was 19. And I remember saying to my mum and my family, I've met somebody. And they were like, oh, okay, he's got a child. And my brother turned to me and he was like, are you sure that you want to do this? And I was working with children. I still am. So I've always had that maternal instinct. So for me, it wasn't a massive like, whoa, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I was a bit more like, yeah, it is what it is. If I really like the person, then I'm sure I can make it work. But yeah, I remember my brother going, are you sure? And my mum was going, are you sure you want to do this? It's going to be really hard. And at the time I was like, yeah, it's new, it's fresh, it's lovely. And then you get a little bit further down and you're like, oh, this is really... And even now I still have days where I'm like, take a breath, it's okay. And I'm really positive at the end of it. But even days I have now and I'm like, everything's fine.
And it is that moment where you, even when you are in a better place, you still have to interrupt your thoughts because your mind will spiral. So it's that moment when something happens with your older stepdaughter and you automatically go into that kind of like, and then you take the breath and you have to interrupt that thought and remind yourself, actually, it's okay, and go from there. So still doing that 10 years later in a really positive situation just goes to show that, you know, there's so many women I know who'll be listening who are thinking like, oh, it's me, I'm doing this wrong, I shouldn't be feeling like this.
It's not. 100% it's not. Like I said at the beginning, we never thought we would be in this place where we are now, co-parenting. But there's still moments where I say to my husband, I think you need to, I think this is your territory, not mine. And that's where we're at. We work together as a team and we are a team. And there's been, as an 11-year-old, I'm sure you can imagine, there's things, she started secondary school, that whole situation. And there's things we've done as co-parents together to manage situations. But then there's been times where his ex and his daughter will say something and I'll go, this is your territory, this is where you come in, and I'm going to take my step back from this.
Yeah. So take me back to 10 years ago then, and you've met this guy, you're 19, your mum and your brother are very politely saying, are you sure? You were meeting his daughter gradually at work. At what point did you step further into that family role?
Oh, I really don't think it was until probably around 1.5 years later. In between that time, he had moved back with his family. He was living with a friend at the time. And we weren't in that relationship space where we could move in together. We weren't at that place yet. And his friend met somebody at exactly the same time he had met me, and they were ready. But I think, again, it was the whole child situation that was involved, and we just weren't at that step yet. So he moved back with his family, and I stopped seeing him when he had his daughter. So he would have his days with his daughter, and I would just step back from that. So around 1.5 years later, his ex had moved about 35 minutes away. So his days had all changed with his daughter, and he was driving 35 minutes to take his daughter out for dinner because he couldn't commit to nursery runs. And he'd done that for a good few months. And by the time he'd driven there, he'd paid for a dinner, he'd driven home. It was taking his time out, his money and everything. And I just said then, look, I can commit to those nursery runs. I can commit to those times. Why don't you speak to your ex? We can work something out and I'll do those runs. I'll go pick her up from nursery and I'll speak to work. I was a lot more flexible with my hours, so I could do that. And I think that was when I took on that first sort of major role in that step-parent kind of relationship.
And how was mum about that?
Absolutely fine. I think that her attitude to it was, you sort out your nursery runs. So if you can't do them, that's on you. So if you can find somebody who can do that, fine. And I did it. And I remember my mum again saying, she loves them all now. But I remember my mum going, Jess, that's like your time, your effort, your money. into somebody else's child. And I know it sounds really bad, but that was what it was.
And it doesn't sound really bad because your mum's there to hold up the uncomfortable truths when you don't want to go there. That's what we do. And I'm 45. My mum still does it for me, and I'm grateful for it. And also, it is something to consider because you're still only really young at this point, and you're building your own career, and you've got your social life, and maybe not a lot of your friends have got children or stepchildren at that point. It doesn't sound bad at all to think about that decision. And a lot of the time, women going into that stepmom role will give so much of themselves because they're like, this is the right thing. I want my partner to be able to see his child more, and he can't manage it, so I'm going to help, I'm going to step in. And that slowly can creep into a lot of over functioning, a lot of giving more of yourself than you possibly actually can.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly it. I think at the beginning, I didn't want to jump in. Like I said, I didn't want to be like, oh, I'll do everything, because I didn't want the relationship to break up. And then I've got this child to think of as well as myself. So then when it got a bit further down the line, and I was like, this is getting a little bit more serious now. We're a bit more together. And that was when I threw myself in, and I maybe threw too much of myself in. And that was my role then as, I guess, taxi in some ways. I was the tax, and I still, even to this day, I still do it now. So I still do the school runs, the drop-offs, the bus stop drop-off, all of that. And that's my role as stepmum.
And when you started doing the nursery runs and all of those things, you guys weren't yet living together?
No.
No.
So I think that was when I was a bit more like, yeah, this is for me, this is for the long haul. This is what I want now. This is when I'm going to be a part of your life, her life. This is where I want my situation to go. And I guess if you were to look at an average person's time with somebody, and when they first meet, and then when they have all of these milestones, when you're that blended family, your milestones are maybe, certainly ours, were shifted a little bit further along. We didn't move in together until I think around 2.5, 3 years that we really started to go, okay, let's start living together. Let's do this. And it was just a lot more further along the lines than an average relationship would be.
And what was your relationship like with your stepdaughter?
At the beginning, I guess, I was a little bit more reserved. I didn't want to, again, throw myself into that relationship. And then it just built. And I think because I'd been with her since she was so little, and me and my partner have been together for so long, it was all she knew. So especially when I started doing the nursery runs and everything, it was actually quite a nice bond that we had and that we have now.
That's so sweet. It's also nice to think of the fact that, yes, on one level you're the taxi service, but it also means that you get that time with just you and her to chat in a non-forced way.
Yeah, definitely. I remember one time we were at the car boot, and I think she must have been maybe 5 at the time. She's very mature. I think she's just had to going backwards and forwards to different houses. She's just got on with it, really. And we were at the car boot and we were buying donuts, and I was with her, and the lady from the counter went, "Gosh, don't you look like your mum?" And we were like, "Oh," and she just went, "Yeah." And I was like, oh, okay. I don't want to say anything because I didn't want to embarrass her. But at the same time, I didn't want to be like, no, she's not mine, because I didn't want her to be like, feel sad about that. So we sort of just looked at each other and just smiled like, yeah, okay. Aww. And then we got the donuts and went away. She's always appreciated me, my stepdaughter. I've always felt appreciated by her. Maybe sometimes when I didn't by my husband or his ex, I knew that she was always the one that would be like, yeah, I appreciate you. So we've got a lovely bond.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. I'm like beaming. That story's so sweet. So it's obviously amazing that you always felt supported by your stepdaughter and like she was grateful for you, but you say you didn't necessarily always feel it from her mum or her dad. Hey, can I steal a moment? If you've been listening and quietly thinking, I wish I had somewhere to say the things I don't say out loud, I might have the answer. I want to invite you into a space where you don't have to hold it all together. A space for the thoughts that sit heavy, the feelings that don't always have words, and the questions that surface when there's no one to ask. It's calm, it's clear, and it's built around you. A space where you can speak freely, be fully heard, and start making sense of it all, while moving forward in a way that actually feels good. Whether you're navigating tricky dynamics, setting firmer boundaries, or just trying to feel more like you again, this is where we begin. If that sounds like something you've been craving, head to stepmumspace.com and book a free intro call. I'm a qualified transformational coach and stepfamily specialist, and I would love to support you. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, I was doing that taxi and you asked how like her mum felt about that, and I just said, yeah, she was fine. And I think it was always fine because we were doing it, not necessarily her. So it was one of those situations where as long as she wasn't involved in that, then it was a relationship, especially at the beginning between my partner and his ex, that was actually, it was toxic between them. So again, I wanted to take that step back because I didn't want to get involved, but actually their relationship was not great. They couldn't communicate with each other. And it was a case of their minimal communication. So as long as my stepdaughter was picked up, dropped off, then that was fine. That was all she wanted. But again, it got to the point where there was arguments between them two about anything and everything, that it was nitpicking. I say it was all sunshine and rainbows. It wasn't. It really wasn't. There were times when it was, you wanted to bang your head against the wall. And again, as a step parent, I never was involved in that situation. I always said to my husband that I'll support him from the sidelines, but that's your situation to deal with. That's you. That's not on me. And I don't think I actually, considering I was doing all of these nursery runs and school runs and everything like that, I don't actually think I got my stepdaughter's mum's phone number until probably a year and a half ago. So I was involved, but not involved. I would never communicate with her in that way unless I was dropping off and we'd speak face to face. But in the grand scheme of things, it's still my husband's responsibility. It's still on him to communicate with her and say, this is when we're going to be dropping her off. This is when we're going to pick her up. Or we've got a holiday booked in. Can we have her on these dates? That's still on him, because in the grand scheme of things, I'm just the bonus parent. I'm the extra, not the actual. So yeah, even now, I don't really communicate unless I really have to.
I think there's something quite protective about doing that as well. I like the way you said, it's my husband's, and I thought you were pausing because you weren't going to say problem. You were thinking, what's the word?
Responsibility. I'm quite good in that. Working with children, you have to think of other words to use that are a bit more appropriate.
Very diplomatic, Jess.
Yeah, my stepdaughter's mum, I still don't fully communicate in that way. That is like the main responsibility. That's on my husband. I've got 2 other children to think about in this as well. And it's, trying to merge all the children in my head is just mind-blowing. So
yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, very grateful for my big family, and I know how very, very lucky I am. But it's a lot of mental load.
It is. And I think you get the additional when it's a stepchild as well, because you've got to try and remember we've got them this weekend, which means we can then put those plans in to fit that weekend. And it is a lot. And nobody realises it until they're in it, that it is a lot. It's like planning birthdays or birthday parties. I'm planning my daughter's first birthday and I have to work out the weekends of when we have, and is it this weekend? Or if not, I'm going to have to get my husband to message so that we can have my stepdaughter. So, and it's exhausting because it's just an additional thing to have to remember.
Yeah, and it's more than just the date, isn't it? Because you've then got somebody else in the mix that you have to communicate. And even if it's relatively easy communication, it's still somebody else's life that you have to try and fit in and be mindful and considerate of. So it is really hard. And again, I've been working with some women this week who've been really quite harsh on themselves for saying they find it hard and almost making themselves the problem. Like, oh, but I knew he had a child, so, I should. And actually, you know they have a child, but you don't really know what that's going to mean in terms of, okay, you want to get a cheap deal on a holiday. Well, you've got to have a four-way negotiation about the dates on it. It's a lot, even when it's relatively easy.
And I think I'm glad you said that, because I think another point that I wanted to make was we do things as a family of 4, as in stepchild not included, that I then feel the mum guilt for because I'm not including my stepdaughter. But actually, I need to give myself grace in that that's okay, because she doesn't miss out. She does things with her mum and her side of the family. She goes on the holidays, she goes on the days out. And I might add that her mum actually said that to me. We were booking a trip to Warwick Castle, and it was on a certain day that it was not our weekend. And I remember messaging her mum and saying, I was looking at booking Warwick Castle. Can I do that? Or do you mind? Can she come along with us? And her mum said, look, it's my weekend. I've actually got something on. Don't worry about it. She's not missing out. Go. Don't feel bad for going either. And I think I needed that, because I was like, yeah, do you know what? I shouldn't feel bad for doing it, and you shouldn't feel bad for doing it, because actually they don't miss out. They have the other side that they can do things, and actually anything they do with either family is a bonus. It's just an extra thing that they do. So
it's hard. You see a lot of people saying, oh, you shouldn't go on holiday without your stepchildren, you shouldn't do things without them. And again, everyone's situation's different.
Yeah.
But I think that can, again, place an unrealistic burden on the woman, the stepmom, because it's generally her who's doing the organising. And it really forces you to not only be juggling probably your work, your husband's work, your children's schedules, and when, you can get a vaguely affordable holiday deal, but then you've got to think of somebody else and you've got to fit that in as well. So in the past, before you had that conversation with your stepdaughter's mum, were you only doing things as a 5?
Yeah, trying to, as much as possible. So there was times when we just wouldn't do things because I'd feel too bad going and doing it if she wasn't involved. Just little things like going out for dinner. Like those really simple things of just, oh, do you know what? We can afford that little dinner out now. Should we go and book it? And I'd go, yeah, but we need to do it so that we've got my stepdaughter with us so that she doesn't miss out on that dinner too. And again, that conversation was last summer. So it's only just happened. And it was then that I was like, do you know what? Like I've just booked to go and see some family. And I didn't feel guilty that my stepdaughter wasn't coming along, because I know that she wouldn't miss out on that. It's not something that she needs, but that conversation happened and it made me feel better. It made me feel better knowing that she's not going to feel sad for missing out, because she's going to be doing something fun with her mum anyway.
But that's where it sounds like in a lot of respects you have a bio mum who's sensible. So if your stepdaughter goes home and goes, oh, they all went to Warwick Castle without me, which I'm not saying she would, but you've got a mum there who's going to say like, well, they can't sit on their sofa every other weekend. And you got to do this with me and da-da-da. And actually there are a lot of bio mums who you do hear about, and I definitely hear about in my work with stepmums, where they'll be saying, oh, well, they're off on holiday without you. That's not very nice.
Yeah. And it's really toxic, and it's not the relationship that is an easy one to have at all. It's really not. And I do sit back and think that we are lucky to have the relationship that we've got. I've got some friends who, again, are exactly the same situation as us, and they're on like the other end of the spectrum nearly with it. It's nice to have that friend that you can vent to, that knows exactly the situation that you're going through, and you can be like, oh, then this happened, and they can be like, yeah, I know, I fully understand where you're coming from, I fully get that. And I think it's really nice that we've got each other, although they're probably having a tougher time than we are with it.
And that community of support is so important because, like you say, you meet another stepmom and you just know they're going to get it. They're going to understand that sometimes you feel resentful, but that doesn't make you a nasty person. You still can absolutely adore your stepchild. But sometimes the situation's tough. And one thing I wanted to ask you, so you've got 2 children with your husband who are, did you say they were 5 and 1?
Yeah, he's nearly 5 and then a nearly 1-year-old.
And one thing that we hear a lot of is that you should love all of your children the same. Where are you on that?
I don't disagree, but I don't agree to a point.
She's sitting on the fence.
Yeah. No, I feel like, so I always said that before I had my son, that I would love my stepdaughter like my own, and then had my son, and I would say it's a different love. I love my children, and I say when somebody says, oh, so how many children have you got? I always say, I've got 2 of my own, I've got a stepdaughter. I always say it, so I've got 3 children. But it is a different kind of feeling. And I know that if my stepdaughter's mum ever listened to this, she wouldn't be like, oh, that's horrible or anything. I know she wouldn't, because she's got the 2 children and she knows what it's like to be a mother of your own children. And I would never show love differently, as in I would never show anybody that I love them more or less or anything like that, but it is a different feeling.
I think that's how I would describe it as well, is that actually there will be women listening who are like, I don't love my stepchild. Maybe there's women listening who don't even like their stepchild. Like, that's okay. We get it. It's complicated. I think with people, as you were saying, you love your stepdaughter, you care for her deeply, you do all the same things for her, but it is different. And I think that's okay. Like, I don't think anyone would expect somebody to love their stepmom in the same way they love their mum. And, you know, I think people get really caught up, or society gets really caught up in, oh, well, if you don't love your stepchildren like they're your own, they almost kind of play it out to the fact where you're presenting your children with, you know, a beautiful meal on a gold platter while your stepchild has to eat out of a dog bowl or something. Like,
literally, I really feel that. Like, you feel like you can't say that because of the negative impact that it's going to bring. And actually, it's not the case. Like I said, I will show them I love them equally, but the feeling is different. 100% it is. I didn't carry my stepdaughter for 9 months, but she was brought to me, and, you know, that's a blessing. I like to use the word bonus because it is a bonus.
And you've known her since she was 1. So, you know, for a woman whose stepchildren might come into her life when they're 9, 10, 11, to suddenly expect them to love them as their own, I think it's really dangerous narrative.
Yeah, I think that there's influence that you can have on a child that's younger. When you're having them nearly 50% of the time, your influence is there 50% of the time, especially when they're young. But when they're older, you know, it is a lot trickier to deal with that. Like my friend, her stepchildren were older when they came into her life. So there's only so much you can sort of put into your stepchildren then to influence that. It just, it's really hard, really hard.
Also, the situation with the mum can dictate the sort of relationship you can build with your stepchild, because people say, oh, but what happens in your house is up to you, which is true to an extent. Like, you have agency over how you show up and you have agency over some of the things that you put in place. But the other parent can have such an influence on the child that sometimes it can be really hard for the most kind, well-meaning, well-intentioned stepmom to even really build a connection, because that child, through no fault of their own, has this incredible loyalty bind to mum and doesn't want that relationship. And therefore, you're stuck.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. It's one of those situations where I feel like I have a certain way of parenting that might be different to my stepdaughter's mum. And so I parent my children the way that I parent my children. And again, sometimes in that case, I will say to my husband, you get involved. It's your turn to come in, because it might be that she does parent differently to me. And in that situation, she's going to need her dad to be like, you need to be behaving like this, because I don't want her to come round and feel like she's always being moaned at by me because I parent differently to her mum. Even now, again, when I say it's really positive, sometimes it's one of them where, again, and I have to take a breath and be like, your turn, you need to come in and take over.
Yeah. And I think like even talking about those things is so important. So there's something which, you know, we have to call it. It's a lot easier to parent your own kids than to parent a stepchild.
100%. 100. I really do agree. It's really hard. And I think that there's sometimes you say things and you think, oh, what if she goes home and tells her mum? And it's like her mum probably wouldn't have done anything. But at the time, what if she did? What if she did? What if I said something or told her off for doing something? And I think now we're starting to get, well, I can do it at my mum's, but I know I have the right relationship to be like, I'll just message and ask her.
Yeah.
I can kind of get away with it now. Whereas really before that, I'd been like, oh no. And the instant dread or like regret of saying something and thinking, oh no, what if she does go back? What's going to happen? And I didn't even say anything bad. It would have just been a general thing that you kind of would say to your children.
It's difficult, isn't it? And even when you say she's saying, oh, well, at my mum's, I can do that. I'm stricter than my husband. So my kids will say, especially my daughter will always be like, Daddy's so much nicer than you. And I'm like, honestly, it does not affect me in the slightest.
I agree. I'm stricter than both of them, yeah.
But if your stepchild says, my mum's so much nicer than you, it's like taking a bullet.
Oh yeah, it's a dagger to the heart, fully. It is. And I think like now when she was, you know, she's getting to that age where she's a bit older and she wants to do things, and she'll say to me, I do that at mum's. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. I'll speak to mum and see. But it is like, if she'd have said that before, I would have been like, it's fine, go and do what you want to do.
Something I wanted to ask you about, which I see a lot on sort of social media and which I see a lot of women experiencing in their lives, is a shift in your relationship with your stepchild after you had children of your own. Is that something that you found? Did your relationship change with her when you had your son?
It's a really good question. I don't think it did. Not that I noticed. She was a lot older. So she was 7 when my son came along. She was really involved and she really wanted to help and she really wanted to be there. And she was the best sister that she could possibly have been. It was never a burden or a negative impact. And I might add as well, her mum actually fell pregnant 12 weeks after me. So I was pregnant with my son, and then her mum got pregnant 12 weeks later with her daughter. And a lot of people go, oh, poor stepdaughter. She went from one house to having no children to then going to both and having 2. And I always fight back with that and go, well, she would have had to have done that if she was with us permanently anyway. She's just dealt with the situation. And I think because of the way she was, I never felt like our relationship ever changed. If anything, it only got better.
It's so nice to hear. And as somebody who's a decade in, and I know you've said that there are things about your story that have been easier than some others.
Yeah.
What do you think are the points where you felt you really needed support from your husband?
I think in a lot of decision makings. So I almost just want him to make the decisions, as in, if she came over and there was a situation, she was talking back or anything like that, I just want him to be like, I'll deal with it. And again, in the whole, I'm stricter in my parenting than my husband, sometimes it gets missed. And then I want to pick up on the behaviours because I want to nip that in the bud. But I don't want to be the step parent that you see on all the Disney movies that are cruel and horrible. So that's the situation where I'm like, you step in. You be and I definitely think from his side of it, I know why he does it, and I know why he doesn't want to interfere with the behaviour sometimes. And it's because he doesn't see her all the time. So he wants to be this nice parent when she's here and all of this. But at the end of the day, you're still a parent. So you still have to parent like you would your other son and daughter who are sat here. I would say that's going to be an ongoing thing forever, really. It's going to be a thing that's going to happen all the time because of how I am as a parent and how he is parenting her. We are very different.
Obviously there's an age gap, but in general principles, does he parent his older daughter from his first relationship different to your children?
100%. Yeah. He won't mind me saying that. Yeah, he does. He does. And I genuinely think it comes down to he doesn't want her to come here and be constantly nagged at, moaned at. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that, because he doesn't want her to be like, you all moan at me all the time, so I'm not coming anymore. That situation. And I fully understand and I fully get it. As our children are growing and getting older, I don't want my son to see that she's getting any treatment because she's not here consistently. And he'd be like, Dad always tells me off, but he doesn't tell her off. How is that fair? Because he will get to that point. He's 4. He will get to the point where he's like, she doesn't have to do this, but I do. So, yeah, that's where I think it's the difficult part. Yeah.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because you can see where it's coming from, but it's like another one of those situations where it's like, but we've got to think about all the children.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Tough one. What do you think have been the factors that have really enabled you to have such a positive relationship?
I think the openness of how I was, although at the beginning was obviously reserved, but as the relationship grew, I was a lot more open to it. And I was a lot more like, do you know what, this is okay. And she is a lovely little girl and I do want her to be a part of my life. So I think that helped, my openness to the situation, my honesty. I am very honest with my partner and I'm very open with him. And I will say if I'm struggling. And I think that's really helped. You know, he's amazing in the situation. And I think he's never seen it as that I've taken on the role as mother, because I haven't. And I think he's always seen it as you are the bonus mum. Although I say that he's had his moments, but in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't left all responsibility to me. If I turn around to him, and said to him, I don't want to do the school runs anymore. I'm drained and I don't want to do them. He would take the morning off work and go and do them. So just honesty and openness to my husband.
And when you've been able to talk to him about things being difficult, has he been able to provide the real emotional support that you need? Because I see a lot of women who have complicated feelings, but as soon as they try and share them with their partner, they're a bit shut down. Oh, don't you like my kids? Don't you want them here?
No, not really. There are aspects that when I really, really, really want a moan and I really want a rant, I won't necessarily go to him. I will go to my friend who is the stepmom, who kind of will be like, I know where you're coming from. Because there's some things where I feel like I don't need to share them with my husband, where he probably won't understand. And, it's the silly things that where I just want to be like, let loose. I probably won't go to him. But he has always been really supportive. And, if there was something that was a major issue, I know that I would be able to go to him and be like, this is an issue. Can you help me? And he will be there emotionally to support me in that, definitely.
Well, that's good. We all need a supportive partner, and parenting from a place of parenting, as you say, not just avoiding everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Jess, it's been so nice to talk to you. You sound like a brilliant bonus mum. I hope that people listening have enjoyed your story, and I'm really grateful for you for combining the honesty about some of the things that haven't been so easy with your positive story.
I think we do see a lot of obviously negativity about it, and I'm not going to sit here and say it was all sunshine and rainbows, because it really wasn't, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I think that you can get there with the honesty, the openness, and a really good stepdaughter's mum, because she is a bonus in that she is really understanding.
And so many people don't have that, and that's where the role comes in for you and your partner to get that support from friends, from family, professionals. And if anybody's listening looking for a bit of extra support, please do reach out, because the worst thing you can do is sit there stewing on your own emotions.
Yeah, definitely. And although I've got that, I still have feelings as a stepmom, and I still have certain times where I'm like, oh, I've taken on a lot. And you do, and you definitely need to talk about it, 100%.
Thank you so much, Jess. I really enjoyed chatting to you. And it's so important for us to acknowledge that even when the relationship with the stepchild and the mother is good, it doesn't mean that the role is automatically easy. So much of stepfamily stress comes from the belief that you should find it easier than you do. And hearing someone speak so honestly, even 10 years in, can be a real exhale. Step-parenting is hard, even when the relationships are good. And if you're finding things tricky, it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you're responding to a complex family system. If you would like support navigating it or working through what's going on for you, please do reach out via the website stepmumspace.com or on the socials at Stepmum Space. And if Stepmum Space has been a support for you, please do rate or review the podcast wherever you listen so we can support other women. We'll be back on Friday with a bonus episode of listener questions. Till then, take care.